Happy Tuesday, sports fans. And if your team won this past Thursday, Sunday, or Monday, you are definitely a happy sports fan. Now, there's a lot of updates, a lot of news, and a lot of stuff that really took place in week 2. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into the fact that week 2 has already come and gone. It is in the books. And like I said, you're a happy camper if your team won. But there's a lot of things that happened this past weekend that caused a lot of unhappy campers. But we'll kick off with the fact that this week's scores and everything that went down starting from Thursday all the way through last night between the Bengals and the Browns kicking off on Thursday. The top games, we would say Rams versus Eagles, Patriots versus Seahawks, and Saints versus Raiders. Those were the top games that fans were looking forward to watching. And, I mean, I can't say that the outcome was any different than most of us expected. The Rams are really on fire right now. The Saints falling short. Drew Brees was definitely not happy about that. He said, look, air yards, they mean nothing, basically. He was very upset about how his passing game ended up going, and we know that he was without Michael Thomas. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's still a lot of talent on that team where we probably were expecting a different outcome. Once again, the Raiders have always shown that they have a very solid team on both sides of the ball. They've just kind of been waiting to have that consistency at the end of their season. And as long as they don't lose too many players to injury, they're not really going to struggle in that area, because that's probably what's held them back in the last 2 seasons where they've had that chance so close. Now, the Saints fell short to the Raiders 34-24. Rams v. Eagles. I don't know who would have possibly taken the Eagles versus the Rams. The Rams have shown that they can at least start the season very hot. We don't know what happens when it gets to the middle of the season, but another team with a lot of talent and a lot of ability. Jared Goff, at opening the game, had 13 consecutive passes just to start off the game. So just imagine what it was like kind of trying to play catch up in that game. And the Eagles are still kind of trying to find their rhythm. We know that Carson Wentz is a very talented quarterback, but between him battling his own injuries, he has had players on his team that have constantly been battling adversity in the injury area as well. So when they can finally find a way to stay healthy and work as a team to get to know each other, with everyone who's supposed to be there being there, the Eagles will start to have more of a fighting chance. But for right now, I wouldn't really bank on them in too many games this season. And then, of course, one of the most exciting games that people were looking forward to after week 1 was week 2, Seattle versus New England. Now, you know, a lot of people are hopping on this Cam Newton train really, really hot and heavy, to the point where they're almost saying that Newton may be a better fit for the Patriots than Tom Brady. I'm like, guys, why are we trying to kick up drama in just every aspect of football right now? Like, can we just let some people live and just enjoy some new players and some new jerseys? No, they always got to take it that far. So Seattle did still end up beating the Patriots 35-30. Look, Russell Wilson, he and his team just know how to make it hurt. I mean, even games that you would count them out of initially just because of the talent on the other team, Russell Wilson is that QB that just somehow puts the wind beneath every player's sails. They won by 5, but it was one of those things that was a total pull-through, I think, in the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. Another MVP performance by Russell Wilson for sure. Cam Newton still did his thing. The unfortunate news that took place after this game was the fact that James White, who was inactive, you know, his dad unfortunately passed in a massive accident here in Florida, and his mom was in critical condition. There's been no update on his mom that I know of, but prayers are going out to him. So many players in the league reached out to show their love, their support for him. So prayerfully, his mom is pulling through, and I'm so sorry for his loss. Now, the devastating news for week 2 is the amount of injuries. There was so many injuries to not just any kind of player, but some of the top players in the league, especially players that just landed massive contracts. We had Christian McCaffrey go down on Sunday with a high ankle sprain. We had Nick Bosa go out. We had Shaq Barkley blow his ACL. He's out for I think the rest of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo, another high ankle sprain. Jared McCoy, Drew Lock for the Broncos, and so many more, too many more names listed as injuries that are going to be out for 6 weeks or more. And this just kind of really brings me to that heavy topic of, was there really a point in not having a preseason? I can't wrap my mind around this right now, because if you think about when preseason would have taken place, or season alone already got pushed back just a little bit, but they could have pushed the season back another 2 or 3 weeks, actually had a preseason for these guys to start warming up those muscles, full contact, and minimize this whole injury situation. Because Where I'm mind blown is that we go into quarantine where people were forced to have different off-season habits, where some people didn't even have the ability to work out the way that they normally do, or practice the way that they normally do. Missing those OTAs and everything else was a lot more painful than just the rookie class trying to learn at an expeditious form. But it was also to the people who, think of the guys on the team that may not have a home gym or may not have that connect just yet to go do those off-season workouts. They really have their own structure and routine in their hometown. And with gyms being open and with being able to have a normal lifestyle. So being on pause, your muscles getting quite stale, then doing what little bit you can, then going into a training camp where you kind of eased into everything because of the quarantine. Then yes, training camp is fantastic. It's a learning pace. It's an opportunity to mark that spot. But most teams, if not all teams, there's not that many practices or scrimmages where these guys are really going 150% versus one another, because at the end of the day, that's your teammate and you need him healthy and equivalent to you on the field, ready to attack the team that the points are going to matter against. So you can bank on the fact that these teams really aren't going to go full out against each other. Even when they do go hard, it's not full out. And that's what those preseason games needed to be. That opportunity to have that full contact, because you're not going against your own teammate who's going to kind of let up or, chill out a little bit, or really not have that extra gear that they kick it into because they're in a different mindset. And there was no reason to not have any preseason games this year. We could have easily pushed the season back about 2 or 3 weeks, had those preseason games, because at the end of the day, the preseason games are equivalent to what we're doing by having a full freaking NFL season. And now so many guys just dropped only week 2 of the NFL 2020 season. My rampage is over, but it was heartbreaking to see all the list of all the guys that, are hurt, and especially Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he just landed a massive contract, and, all these players are going to do their absolute best to bounce back when they can. And this is what the sport's all about, overcoming adversity and bouncing back stronger than you were before. But I mean, week 2, this is an unfortunate load of guys that just really, really got hurt, and not everybody bounces back 110%. Now, as we transition over to our coverage of the week, we had the opportunity and the absolute privilege of being with the Tampa Bay Bucks as they hosted the Carolina Panthers for their technical home opener. I don't know if we call it a home opener without any fans, but anyhow, here's your rundown of what went down on Sunday. Bucks pulled off a victory 31-17, and the numbers stacked higher in favor of Carolina, but those 2 interceptions, we did maximize on them. Tom Brady didn't make as many yards as we thought that he would, but you could tell Brady wasn't happy with too much that went down, even though the Bucks racked up their first W of the season and at least secured their first W at home. Now, as for breakdowns that went on throughout the game, the first quarter was definitely all Tampa Bay. They came out very strong. You could tell that they were hungry to make up for the mistakes from week 1 versus the Saints. And more importantly, there was a lot more consistency and cleaner executions on that offense. We did see a strong presence from the running game this Sunday, and that was amazing to see, because we know that the Bucks have been working on building out that running game. And I mean, if you look at this running back group and that roster, there's really no excuse to not be a force to be reckoned with, not only on that field, but a presence that's felt every single game. Now, more on the running back group is the fact that we know Rojo is Bruce Arians' guy, but it was Leonard Fournette that probably had the highest and best performance on that squad. Leonard Fournette had 2 touchdowns this past Sunday, and mind you, he's still getting acclimated to this team, getting situated in BA scheme. So that's crazy to think, well, we may see out of this guy a couple more weeks. And Rose still did have a strong game, but we know Bruce Arians is not fond of anybody dropping that ball, and he did have one ball security hiccup during the game, and you saw BA kind of keep him on the sidelines a couple plays after that. You got to learn your lesson. You don't drop a ball in BA scheme, and I don't want to say live to talk about it, because he obviously lived, but you don't get too many plays after that. He did get a chance to redeem himself later on as things went on. Now, as I mentioned a couple beats ago, Tom Brady did have a win with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He should be happy, cheery, excited. He's right back in build, fix, grow. We have a lot of mistakes to make up for mode. This was his thoughts for after the game.
Execution was a little bit better. I think we still are a long ways from where we need to be. So it was, I think we have the ability to make plays. I think consistency, dependability are going to be things that we really need. So got to get back to work, and the clock's ticking on next week. So going to get focused on next week's game.
Not the most cheery quarterback for his first win with his brand new team at home of all places. I mean, if most of the guys that I've had an opportunity to interview, chat with, they say that if nothing else, the most important winning opportunity is at home because you're defending your home. Like, you don't let somebody come into your home and make a mess of you or embarrass you. And well, we know Tom Brady has a very strong leadership mentality. We know there's probably a lot of chirping going on the sidelines, and he likes to amp up his guys to just do better. He wants the best or nothing. So I'm kind of excited and nervous to see what takes place when the guys head out to the Broncos. But, I mean, he could have smiled a little bit. Who knows? But for the defensive side of the ball, they have no problem being absolutely stoked about the performance that they put on, and they were on fire. Now, we know that the defense has said one of two things when it comes to just cleaning up their game, being that much better this season and making their presence that much more known against any opponent they go against in this 2020 season. And it was, first of all, commit to those tackles. Get those tackles in, get those guys down on the ground. But second, don't just get your hand on the ball. Make an impact when you touch the ball. Get an interception. And that is what the Bucs did this past Sunday that made all the difference. Their defense was on fire. Poor Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, I think he probably had 4 or 5 sacks the entire game. I mean, the guy had a lot of bonding time with the ground inside Raymond James Stadium, which is so unfortunate because Teddy Bridgewater is such a sweetheart. But yeah, the Bucs defense was definitely lighting him up. They got their hands on those balls. They forced those turnovers, and one of the guys responsible for a very important interception was Jordan Whitehead, which we know that he is somebody on that secondary that's not only a leader, but he is hungry to make that difference. Now, my question to him after the game was, what happened this week in practice? What strides did you guys make in developments to finally get to this place where you started executing on not only getting your hand on the ball, but turning that ball over entirely and getting those interceptions? And this was Whitehead's thoughts on practice leading to that successful day for defense.
This week of practice was kind of just like we really had to focus on what we did last week wrong, fix those mistakes. And then pretty much it's the same focus we had going into the Saints. We just picked up the preparation a little bit on the field. We talk, we communicate. Every day was just a challenge for us. I practiced this week. We knew we had to step up to the challenge this week because what happened last week, we had a couple penalties last week, so we had to try to eliminate that today and make some plays on the ball with no interceptions last week. So we got a couple turnovers today. I think 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. So.
All right. So Jordan was pretty probably hyped about how the defense performed this past Sunday. And if they can carry that into next week's game, I'm thinking that we're going to hear a lot more success that the Tampa Bay Bucs defense happens to have. Now, as for the Bucs hitting the road, they will be facing off with the Broncos at 4:25 this Sunday. And I mentioned earlier that Drew Lock was one of the players on that long list of injuries, unfortunately. So the Broncos had to make a move today, and they signed former Jaguars and backup Rams quarterback Blake Bortles to a 1-year deal after Locke hurt his surgery this past Sunday. So that'll be an interesting matchup. Facing Bortles is no stranger to the Tampa Bay Bucs. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys on this team who can still get a good read on him defensively. So that should be a fun matchup in that area. But at least, it is unfortunate that they had to sign Blake because of these terms and conditions. So we'll see what takes place. Let us know how you guys think the Tampa Bay Bucs will perform, not only on the road, but versus the Broncos. And there's one clip where Tom Brady mentioned, you can't go over 2 on the road. So if anything, that may have been the biggest reason that his focus already switched gears to week 3, because he wants to not only go on the road and win, but he wants this to be a big win. He wants it to be more clean. He wants the execution to be that much more better, and consistency. Consistency is always key. Stick with us, guys, as we head to a quick commercial break. And when we get back, of course, we break down some NBA and NHL because they are in playoff mode.
I'm not picking it up. You pick it up.
I'm not picking it up.
Well, somebody's got to pick it up.
I'll pick it up. They're clean. 'Cause my hand is clean. Oh, yeah, I'm Charmin clean. That's how I know they're clean.
Charmin Ultra Strong is woven like a washcloth and just cleans better.
Yeah, I'm Charmin clean.
The kid does have a point.
My hand is clean. Yeah.
Enjoy the go with Charmin. And for an extra clean finish, try Charmin Flushable Wipes.
All right, guys, welcome back. So as you know, we are in playoff mode when it comes to the NBA, and the last team standing are the Lakers, Nuggets, Heat, and Celtics. Now, there was a lot of temper tantrums taking place. Well, not this past weekend, but last week when it comes to the Heat versus Celtics games. But the Celtics decided to make a bounce back. But first and foremost, the Lakers and how they're playing and the fact that they're leading their series 2-0. Lakers' Anthony Davis hits a Game 2 buzzer beater, channeling his inner and honoring, of course, the one and only Kobe Bryant, and giving the Lakers a 105-103 win, which secured the deal for them being a 2-0 lead in this series. Now, as he hit the shot, he shouted one word and one word only, and that was Kobe. And it was such a moment for everybody to be a part of, obviously through TV screens and not there, but still everybody, everybody, as well as every player in every kind of league is still honoring Kobe Bryant to such a beautiful, beautiful extent. Now, we know that the NBA, before the guys headed into the bubble, decided that they were going to allow players to not only continue, using their voice and their platform to make a difference in this world, but, they were able to change things on their jersey, which is also, I don't know if anybody realized how big of a deal this actually is, because one of the main things that these leagues are not a fan of is anything outside of what they pay for being on these jerseys. So the fact that these guys get to go out there every night and choose what's going on their jersey and how these jerseys are going to look, that was already one big move of saying, we want to be here to help you utilize your platform that much more. Now, Coach Vogel told the guys to think of the power behind the jerseys that they are wearing. Davis reflected and said, just looking down at the jersey and coach telling us is a constant reminder that Kobe is with us, and we kind of have the spirit in those jerseys. So it's just a beautiful thing to see that they not only get an opportunity to use their platform and their voices for everything that's going on in the world, but to also honor somebody who deserves to consistently be honored. He's not somebody that was just famous. He's not somebody that just did big things. He is a legend, and his legendary presence will continue to be honored, and it's such a phenomenal thing to see. Now, Nuggets, excuse me, it's only Tuesday, Case. Lakers versus Nuggets Game 3 takes place tonight at 9 p.m., so that'll be tipping off here shortly. And then, like I mentioned a few moments ago, Celtics are finally starting to gain some confidence after their rough start in the series versus the Heat. We know that the Heat really took off on them, taking that series 2-0, but then it was this past Saturday that they pulled off their first victory, winning 117-106, and Game 4 will be tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Now, as we quickly transition over to the next league that is in playoffs, it's so crazy to think that we are at the top of the NFL season, and we're also in the midst of two playoff systems where one's already in the Stanley Cup and the other one's getting ready to head to the finals. It's just bonkers to absolutely think about. But as we switch gears and head over to the NHL, Bolts have an answer for their Game 1 loss, and Kucherov breaks Lightning playoff record. Now, if you guys didn't get an opportunity to catch a Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, Game 1 was this past Saturday, and the Stars came out quick, physical, and causing a lot of chaos and confusion. Now, I say that the way that I said it because the way that we've been watching the Lightning play the past, I want to say 4 games, you can't really say that they were asleep in the first period, but let's just say it was almost a whole 45 minutes that went by of ice time before we really saw and felt a presence from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, some people are giving them a reprieve because the biggest factor that plays in is that they played one night prior, whereas the Dallas Stars had 4 nights of fresh legs and recovery, something that the Lightning did experience before they headed into their series with the New York Islanders. So that was probably a little bit of swab off payback to the fact that they got to rest up heavy before facing the Islanders, and now this time they had to transition right into the Stanley Cup. They unfortunately fell to the Dallas Stars 4-1. That last goal being an empty netter, I think, with about 2 minutes left in the game. Now, like I said, Dallas is not only a fast team, but they are a very physical team. And in the words of defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk from the Tampa Bay Bolts, they allowed the Stars to bring the game to them. Now, if you watched the Tampa Bay Lightning throughout this past season, you would recognize that when they don't come out controlling the game or commanding the ice is when they're either playing catch-up, and it's very hard for them to catch up in most instances. They have to come out playing their game, and they play a very simple game at that. Every presser that you join in on, or here after the fact, they always talk about playing a very simplistic game. Now, more importantly, Kevin Shattenkirk also said at the end of that first game, they finally started playing their game in the third period, which gave them an opportunity to almost catch up, but you can't catch up when there's not enough time on the clock. Also, Dallas is a very strong forechecking team with a lot of skilled players who bring a very physical element to that ice. There's already a lot of tension on that ice starting from game 1, and game 2 got even worse. Now, the best thing is that we know, in the words of alternative captain Victor Hedman, who is one of the top defensive men in this league, says you always have to remain even killed, whether you win, whether you lose. And that's I keep mentioning this because not only the magnitude of the importance behind it, but the fact of how much the Bolts actually live by this and execute it. They are very even killed regardless of what's taking place. And even Coach Cooper said the same thing in his post-game press conference yesterday. Now, after, I'm not going to say messy game 1, but unfortunate game 1 for the Bolts, they answered that game 1 with their own victory. Last night was game 2, and the Bolts finally tied up the series 1-1 because they came out playing their game from the minute that puck dropped. Tampa Bay also scored scored first for the first time in the last 7 games. They've usually been playing catch up, but their response time has always been very speedy, almost to the point where you wondered, why didn't they score first to begin with? Now, Coach Cooper mentioned in a presser after game 1 that they did plan to readjust their power play just a little bit, and that was a game changer last night for the Bolts. They ended up scoring on 2, I think, out of 4 or 5 power plays, and that was 2 of their 3 goals that they ended up scoring all in all last night. The third goal was a beautiful wrister from defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk from nearly the blue line, if not the blue line in total. Their forechecking was amazing and so on point last night. If you watch that game, if the Bolts play like that for the rest of the series, they're taking this cup and bringing it back home to Tampa Bay. They played a very clean, very well executed game last night. And the best part is they're one of those teams where everybody is involved. Their defenseman is holding such a strong perimeter. They're playing up high in the O-zone and then still being able to backtrack to their side of the ice and defend. They did swap out and have Jan Ruda join the defense team last night rather than having Bogosian out there as well as Shin. Coach didn't really want to release much as to why those 2 players were not suited up and ready to go last night, one particularly possibly being an injury, the other one just being a coaching decision. You've got to be able to remold your team for every situation, and they learned a lot from game 1. Katie said it, Kucherov said it, Point said it. It's just you play a game, you learn from it, you make adjustments, and then you go in hoping for better and working for better and keeping your game as simple as possible. Now, the Dallas Stars had a little bit of a catch back up in the second period. They did still play a great game last night, but the hats really go off to Nikita Kucherov. Of course, you're going to hear this name and you're going to hear plenty of celebration around it. He actually set a new record for the Tampa Bay Lightning for most points in a playoff. So massive congratulations to Kucherov. And of course, in his post-game presser, it's not like he was excited or exhilarated. He's like, yeah, it's cool. That's literally his response. Yeah, it's cool. He's just, if you talk about an even kill person, Kucherov is like, his name's definitely next to it in a dictionary, because there's not many times that you ever catch much of a response or reaction out of him. I think when they won the Eastern Conference Finals was the most celebratory I've seen him. Even when he scores goals, it's just kind of like, okay, cool, next goal. So anyway, congratulations to him. Now, like I mentioned earlier, tensions have been extremely high since game 1, and they were even more hot last night. There was multiple pile-up fights. There was a point where the Tampa Bay Lightning had 3 guys in the penalty box. Yeah, 3 whole jerseys in the penalty box, just like not a big deal. There was a lot of fist slinging. There was a lot of helmets being pulled off, and then a lot of hooks, a lot going on. But I mean, that's kind of why a lot of us watch hockey, is for all of that. And they say that's how the old school hockey was. They let the physicality go, and it was 10 times worse than it is now, because skills players were few and far between. It was all about the contact and the heavy hitters. Now, we have a quick commercial break ahead of us, and when we get back, we break down some MLB soccer and some major breaking news that took place last night and has been ringing through the headlines all day today. Stick with us as we head to this commercial break.
One of the things I love about Bass Pro is they have 3 great ways to shop. You can head into one of their awesome stores, visit BassPro.com, or get great gear from that catalog Johnny Morris sends out. Hi, here's your package. Bass Pro Shops, where commitment, passion, and the great outdoors all come together. Why would you shop anywhere else?
All right, guys, welcome back. So for our quick MLB updates, we have the Astros losing to the Athletics, giving the Athletics their first West title since 2013. They were super stoked about that. A lot of Gatorade, a lot of water being tossed everywhere, regardless of COVID. I'm just kidding. I'm not that big of a germaphobe, but I kind of am. Cubs, Bryant is on a day-to-day basis with a strained oblique, so we'll see when he feels fully 100% and gets the clearance from the medical team to go back and head in for his Cubs. And seeding will be decided. But seeding will be decided on who bats last in the upcoming World Series. So depending on how everything weeds out with this seeding, they will determine who ends up batting. I don't know why that was a mouthful to even get out. Now, as we quickly transition over to some soccer news, MLS sets league scheduling decision and season conclusion for November 8th. We know that a lot of teams are having to either cut their season short or trying to figure out what this transition is going to look like from playing catch up to heading in and catching up and executing a full on season. So they will be wrapped up by November 8th. Then we also have the U.S. men's team won't train or play friendlies in October. The guys are still hopeful that they can play in Europe in November. So they're probably doing that for precautionary measures so that when it comes time to test and figure out how they're going to travel, self-quarantine, and everything else that goes into this whole new COVID lifestyle, then they can all be safe and secure and ready to go. And a quick update across the pond, a major move. Real Madrid gets rid of Gareth Bale, and he signs with Tottenham. I was pretty surprised to see this move only because Bale was a big part of Real Madrid's whole roster, but I'm guessing because of everything that took place with COVID, there's been a lot of major changes and big names making moves in that transfer market, and it's because teams have to make room for money, and that's just kind of going to be a big thing across all teams and leagues right now. We haven't gotten much update on what's going to happen when the NHL gets back from the bubble or the last two teams, and the guys probably get 2 weeks off and then they transition into training camp and head into their next season. But there's a lot of negotiations that's going to come up for the NHL. We've already seen a lot of big trades for the NHL, but all teams across the board have to reconfigure that salary cap. So let's just say that there's a lot of big hits being taken across the pond. And as for our major news of the night, and to close out the segment, Michael Jordan is not only a Charlotte Hornets owner, but now he is a NASCAR team owner, making history. Denny Hamlin has joined Charlotte Hornets owner Michael Jordan to form a NASCAR team, and their driver is no one other than Bubba Wallace. The new partnership was announced last night, making this a historic moment in NASCAR, adding some of the diversity that NASCAR is seeking to bring to the sport. So not only is this a big move for NASCAR, but they're continuing to show their love, their support, and their seriousness about making that sport for everybody and making it serious. So that was a big move. We knew that something big was going to happen when Bubba Wallace announced that he was no longer going to be driving with his former team. So here we have it, Michael Jordan. That was pretty awesome news. And Denny Hamlin has been a major supporter of Bubba Wallace and such a leader presence in NASCAR. We know that NASCAR is an individual sport for the most part, even though you are riding with a team, but it's what you do behind the wheel in that moment. It kind of, ricochets throughout the whole league. And Denny Hamlin has been someone who makes his presence known, not only on the track, but off the track and within the whole NASCAR industry. So for him to pair off with Michael Jordan for this endeavor is also something that's, pretty big, pretty amazing, and just all in all, great news to close off with and kind of kick off everybody's week, right? That is it for me tonight, guys. Like I said, I figured we'd close out with some fantastic news, and all in all, unfortunate part of this whole week so far has just been the injury. So we're praying for speedy and fast recoveries for all the guys that were impacted this past Sunday and Monday. Let us know how your team did, and not only how your team did, but how your team is going to do in week 3. We will be posting week 3 predictions coming up on Thursday morning. So we want to know where you guys' heads at, and if you're a big bettor, I guess, let us know what you're betting on, what your fantasy is looking like, and where it's going. Shoot us a message in our DMs or comment below and let us know, and we'll have it a part of Friday's segment at 8 p.m. That is it for me tonight. Per usual, stay safe, stay kind, stay compassionate, stay sane, and wear your mask. We have a lot going on in the world right now, and at least we're getting a little bit strides back to being normal. But if we all do our part, then we can kind of enjoy more of our new melodies a little bit faster. We're hoping for these fans in the stands throughout the league coming up soon. That is it for me tonight. I will see you guys Friday at 8 p.m. right here.